The power of Netflix. When Netflix was first coming up, Blockbuster Video said, if Netflix takes over Hollywood, it would be like the Albanian army taking over the world. Well, apparently it's taken over the world, right? They have conquered Hollywood. And where I'm going with that is the power of their brand. They are recruiting some of the top stars in Hollywood right now to do a Netflix movie, but not paying them necessarily Hollywood rates, which goes to like recruiting and building up your firm or building up associates or getting lawyers on. It's the power of the brand, the power of the reach, and the power to like be able to build up from there, if that makes sense.
Welcome to the Throne of Wealth, the podcast that empowers you to reign over your financial future. Each episode brings you tax strategies, wealth building insights, and stories from inspiring entrepreneurs. The Throne of Wealth is brought to you by King of Kings Accounting Firm, where financial challenges become opportunities for growth. Let's get into it.
Hi, welcome back to another episode of the Throne of Wealth, and we are here today with Zach and a special guest that is gonna disclose how to improve and grow our brand and how to add power to our business just by having a strong brand and present ourselves as an authority in social media and in every digital platform. Zach, welcome to our podcast today, and we're so happy and honored to have you here today.
Hi, Karen. Thank you for the awesome intro. And yes, been in the digital branding and branding business, just digital driving results and leads for our clients for over 20 plus years now. So appreciate that intro.
Off the podcast, Zach, you were mentioning how, your career, your passion started, and you mentioned that, you studied finance, how passionate you are about data, and, results. And one thing that we know about brand lead generation, right? We have to love and be passionate about data, but more than that, how do we present ourselves and how do we grow in our message to our ideal client? You also now have made some changes in your organization and have gone more industry specific into the legal. Can you tell us a little bit more about those changes and decisions, right, that you have taken into place in your own business, and how can this benefit our audience when listening to your own success?
Yeah, for sure. So I've been building the business now for 20 plus years. And in order in business, I think to survive that long, you have to evolve or, stay on your feet. But also in this marketplace where I'd say there's like a shorter attention span than ever as well, opportunities want to be spoken to directly, that you're like the expert in their particular field, a particular space. Being a generalist for most of my career, though we were serving a lot of law firms simultaneously, it did take a lot for me to just be like, we're just going to 100% niche down to law firms from a messaging perspective. We still get opportunities outside of law firms as a result of our success. And the fact is that people don't always just read websites, especially in today's marketplace, to make their decisions. But it took a lot to take that quantum leap to really niche down and just be like, I need this to exponentially grow with this audience versus being a generalist to really thrive in today's environment.
Yeah, one of the things that I have learned throughout the years in business, right, like you were saying, any business that has 2 decades, it has gone for the ups and downs. That's, we all know that. But one of the things that, kind of catch my attention on that is going industry specific. That's a decision and a commitment as business owners, because we're committing ourselves to rebuild the business that we have in existence. But we can only do that if we have a strong brand, Zach. Because think for 2 seconds, if I'm going to rinse out all of my other clients, or I won't no longer take clients that don't align to the vision and values of the company in the decisions that I'm making in the current time, and I have to have a strong brand. I have to have a strong digital presence. So can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because this decision comes with a lot of other small decisions and small tasks and more milestones and goals that we have to accomplish in order to get to the end goal.
Correct. I mean, it's like, it's almost like being a rocket ship or speeder, it's like, it's not going to hit its target if it has like all these like things on the side of it or just like kind of like flying in the wind. So it's becoming more precise and like really being able to like angle your communication and channel down with how you're speaking to your audience versus being general in the audience. Another thing that really assisted was getting into a mastermind. So being amongst our peers, my peers, like agency owners, I'm in a agency group where it's all niche down agencies, and you'd be surprised how many like digital niches there are. And there's that old saying, like, riches are in the niches. And but when you're talking to an audience, and I know we were talking about like immigration law or injury law, or just like, the ability of a brand to basically be able to convert a lot of opportunities because of the strength of the brand. Brands are huge. That's what I think, like, the misconception of like business owners sometimes is. Like, McDonald's can sell any type of food they decide to sell. Starbucks has a reputation. It was taken over by the guy running Chipotle to get more into like fast food, and because they knew that was like a profit margin. They assumed people are going to continue to come for coffee, but we could use the Starbucks brand to like build up more of a positioning. But what I'm getting at is I never believe that there's a wasted penny in advertising and marketing. Like, there's sometimes like business owners, I'd be like, oh, I wasted. You didn't waste $1. Like, you didn't waste 1 penny. Like, whatever you quote unquote invested into marketing and advertising, as long as you have the data and the understanding of how it felt, what it might have brought you, I don't think you wasted a penny, because the brand is still there. And it lives with the entity and the company. And there's also a value to brands, right? So there's a study that comes out, I believe, every year, where a publication values what a brand is worth. I know Apple's one of the most valuable brands in the world, Google, and even Google is called Alphabet on the publicly traded, marketplace. But there's a lot of entities. Like, even if you look at OpenAI, ChatGPT is probably one of the most, rocket ship brands that we see right now. So there's brand value. Brand does have value when it comes to an equation of what a company's worth, for sure.
Yeah, and for sure, I was thinking something that you said right now. Sometimes we are so passionate and so loyal to a brand that when they announce a new product or a new service, we immediately inquire, what is it that you're adding? Or, I'm interested, or you're buying in accordance to brand, and you're willing to pay more for a premium brand, because that goes with deliverables, right? When it comes to our brand. So like you were mentioning Apple, if you look at the phone, yes, in technology wise, a lot has changed, but for people that we're not looking for a phone to use it more like a computer or things like that, we just need it for phone calls and text messages. Like, I'm not one of those that kind of use my phone for like everything. It just outbound and inbound calls and text messages, and that's it.
Yeah.
And so I really don't need an expensive phone, but every time that Apple announced a new phone, I'm like, ooh, I want to know. I want that new toy, right? So tell us a little bit more of how important and how your company helps, attorneys to position themselves and their brand. And right now, Zach, I'm seeing a lot and a lot more that, the solopreneurs or, attorneys that started their practice 20 plus years ago, they don't have a strong brand in social media. They don't have a strong brand when it comes to the digital marketing. Mind you, there is a lot of firms that are investing thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars when it comes to Google ads and other type of ads that they're running. But when it comes to the owners and the shareholders and associates in the practice, you're not seeing that strong personal brand. What about if something were to happen to your practice today, or the main owner or shareholder of that practice, something were to happen and you need to start over again, and you don't have a brand, you don't have presence, you're not known as an authority in the digital marketing, how that affects you?
So we've worked with a brand, I can't really name the name, where that situation did happen, where the partners were basically separated at some point, and then something happened to one of the partners, and the brand still carried on. But this was one of the original like big brands in law firms as a whole. But I would also say, like, if you look at like Morgan & Morgan, for example, and I did just give a speech to my team about this morning, because Morgan & Morgan is spread pretty wide throughout the country, right? And I hear about them from my clients, John Morgan, I'm sure you hear about them from your clients. The fact is like they're playing an away game in a lot of territories, right? Like everybody's intimidated by them, but nobody's saying like, wait a second, I have home field advantage here. They're building a huge brand, and the brand is probably bigger to most lawyers and law firms than it is to a consumer. But you know, he's anteing up another 50% this year publicly. He went, or 35%. He went up 250 million a year in budget to $350 million a year in budget. But I also said to my team this morning that, you know, helps in you know, us generating business. I said, look, the fact is, I don't think like law firms necessarily, the algorithm and the mathematics of how much they can really spend per case when you're going up against an entity like that, as well as bankers from Wall Street that are starting to get into the business, they know a true value of a case, right? And that math, I think, escapes a lot of firms. Is like, some have this misconception they're paying $2,000 a case, $1,000 a case, $3,000 a case, or that when they add in all the numbers, and you as an accountant, I'm sure you see it, like the true cost of a case, it's like there is a real number, and there's a real number that Morgan's hunting with. There's a real number that Wall Street's hunting with. And I think the broader street needs to kind of like get to that area. And that goes with branding, because that plays into your overall marketing budget. And there's a couple aspects of a marketing budget. There's going to be the branding aspect, and then the direct response aspect of the budget. And as you grow, it's important to start to like chip away at that iceberg of like building a brand and like building that equity, because it makes the direct response funnel that much more efficient and have the ability for like quicker intake, or I think like less hesitation of a consumer, because they already know a brand name in the legal space in their local marketplace. And it gives them that much more dominance, I think, like go forward, if that makes sense.
Yeah, completely. Because sometimes, you know, we, when it comes to brand, like going back to it, we're focused on only the dollars that we're inputting in, but we're not focusing about, you know, how many of those cases and the actual value, like you were mentioning, you know, there's an actual cost per case that firms have. But the other thing that I do notice when I review clients' books or you know, financial plans at times, is that in the budget part, there's not a separation of two, of what you just mentioned, right? And this is important, identifying where are you allocating your marketing dollars and seeing the ROI of that investment. What will be 3 tips that you will give law firm owners, you know, to implement if they don't have them in place, and if they have them in place, to obviously track them, have measurables around them to make sure that, you know, they're efficiently tracking these KPIs and their effort, in their input and their marketing?
Well, definitely, I think one overlooked item is the website. That I always tell entities, it's the cornerstone of your business. If you're going to get referrals, if you're going to have like new business coming in, or just like people that are coming into you because they heard about you, the website is so important. So that should be like a cornerstone investment. And whether or not you're doing marketing and advertising on a dynamic perspective, like the website should be invested in from just like an effectiveness perspective. Second, there's a lot of people in the industry that pitch search engine optimization first, like AIO, SEO first. Go with paid ads. I've been to the offices of Google, been to the offices of Meta. They could pave the roads with golden bricks. Like, it's not a nonprofit, right? So you could get squeezed from SEO, you could get clients from it, but the ability to like really draw traction right away is just, it's not there like it would be from an effectively run paid ads program. And not every Google Ads manager is the same. So if one agency doesn't work, give another one a try. And then a third, like when we talk about social influence, or like just the ability there, if I could give it in one piece of advice, it might be the kid in me a little bit, but like study a guy named Mr. Beast. He's the youngest self-made billionaire. He's a YouTube influencer, and all of his influence was strictly built off of like social media and YouTube. And youngest self-made billionaire in the world right now. I think he's 28 years old.
Wow.
And if you just watch some of his videos, and it's not painful, it's actually funny and enjoyable. So, you know, you can learn a lot of like gems from like what he's doing, but also don't downplay associates at your firm that want to get involved in social media. Like just because the heads of the firm might not want to be like the voice and the face of the firm, like understand like me, you, everybody, like these phones, like people are on Instagram, people are on Facebook, they're on TikTok, they're on X, they're on YouTube, they're on these mediums. The biggest question right now is whether or not they watch TV. And nobody really wants to admit that. But the TV companies are paying so much money right now on record dropping viewership. The NBA is the best example of this. They dropped 15% in viewership, yet they got a contract for $80 billion for rights to their show because it's the only show that NBC could put on their network to think that somebody might watch it. It's like, it's mind blowing. But you go look at like Mr. Beast or Bass Fishing Productions on YouTube. John Morgan has like a plug in Bass Fishing Productions. This kid has like 3 to 5 million views on different videos. Those impressions go nationwide, and the price for influencers and to like reach into them is, it's not, the economics haven't like met where they should be. So there's opportunities there, but like we need to understand it's like fossil fuels are fossil fuels. Traditional media is traditional. And yes, it does still effectively get a message out there and opens up like new circles. But I believe that social media and aspects of video do have traditional mechanisms to them, but you have to invest in great content, great assets, and do the testing and get volume out there for it to like, to get your dog to, to get it to bark, to get it to like,
to get your investment to be worth it, right? Because if you're only posting once every 3 days or so, how many other videos? So your competition or the bigger attorneys, they have a lot more budget or a lot more people on their team are posting 3 to 6 times a day. So if you're only doing one input, then the output is not going to be there. The other thing, based on what I hear, that YouTube, long content, right? Long videos. I think that's going to help a lot. I think that Zach, what I'm seeing as well from a lot of a lot of clients and in analyzing data and reports with some of these law firm owners, that the more specific you are, if you're generalist, it's going to be really hard. Because nowadays, when you click on a video, you're looking for something. Like the other day, I don't even remember, but it was a setup that I was looking at my house, and I got like 6 other videos similar to that, and I'm like, geez, like when did this happen? I hadn't gone into social media in days, and actually in months. But I was like, oh my God. So if you're not being specific to who you're directing your message to, I think your message will get lost. We get lost with so much traffic right now. Be authentic, invest in content. And I think invest in brand. Nowadays, we're not in the times for us to kind of like be just testing, right? I think we need professionals. We need people that has done it. And your company has over 20 years that has worked with so many other businesses, right? And that's all these analysis, the data, understanding the message. Where are we in the market? Where are we trying to go? So tell us, Zach, how can people get in touch with your team, and how can they, contact you and work with your company?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. You can check out our website at exults.com. That's exults.com. Or I have a social handle, zhoff33 on Instagram, that I'm updating quite frequently. But just look us up online. You'll be sure to find us, or myself. But definitely, we practice what we preach in a lot of ways.
So anything or any content or webinar that you're going to be attending or giving and saying to the audience, we will be providing this in the near future in 2026, or something that you said, do this in 2026? Something that you want to leave our audience with, Zach, before we wrap up this podcast today?
Oh yeah, for sure. Just continue to reevaluate your like budgets and what you're investing in. Part of the conversation did like lead me to like one thing that I do want to share if we have like a couple more minutes.
We do.
Like one thought. So, the power of Netflix, right? So when Netflix was first coming up, Blockbuster Video said, if Netflix takes over Hollywood, it would be like the Albanian army taking over the world. Well, the Albanian army apparently has taken over the world, right? They have conquered Hollywood. And where I'm going with that is the power of their brand. They are recruiting some of the top stars in Hollywood right now to do a Netflix movie, but not paying them necessarily Hollywood rates, which goes to like recruiting and building up your firm or building up associates or getting lawyers on. It's the power of the brand, the power of the reach, and the power to like be able to build up from there, if that makes sense. So building and investing in your firm's brand, it can yield a lot of powerful results. It can, recruit you the best lawyers, the best associates out there. You can lock them in for the prime of their 3 to 5 years when they're going to have their highest yields for your firm. And like I said, it's thinking differently, because the one thing that I could assure you with like where the markets are right now is evolution is moving faster and faster. Moore's law of chips, basically doubling in speed every 18 months is almost irrelevant at this stage, because if you look at the speed of like which AI is like doubling in efficiency and the like just kind of like the hyper evolution of technology, which applies to marketing 1000%, because the marketing game is an attention game. So don't forget that. And like I said, if the power of influencers, Taylor Swift, NFL's biggest influencer of all times, however you look at it or not, her and her, relationship with Kansas City Chiefs tight end, like saved the NFL viewership. There are studies out there that I think it increased their viewership by 30%. That's the power of an influencer. So think creatively with your marketing budgets. Don't necessarily think in a box just because it worked 5 or 10 years ago, or you're looking at the legacy guy in your market and you're like, well, this is how he built up. Well, it's 2026 right now. And what he did in 1980, 1990, and the early 2000s to build up his practice, that was, that's 15 or 20 years ago right now. So, I always like to think I'm 20 years old, but, it's like the sands of time tell the truth. But I think that's the one thing I'd leave you with is like really just like the power of the flux of like where things are like going and how fast the speed of technological evolution is going, which is where the attention economy is riding on its coattails, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That well said, Zach. That's powerful. I was just thinking the power of the brand will attract the talent. Many business owners, law firm owners are burned out because they don't have talent that someone that will come in would treat the firm as their own and make sure that the deliverables, the cases, right, the things don't follow through the cracks, accountability, take that responsibility. Sometimes I always say, you have helpers, you don't have leaders in your organization, but how can we attract that top talent through a good brand? Yeah, that's amazing.
And now there's great influencers to study in legal social media, like Mike Raffi. I think he's out of Georgia. I think he's out of your backyard, but Mike Raffi, he has a great social profile. And just like, if you study his content, he's almost like training, kids that are in law school, or even like talking to new associates, and probably gets a lot of referral cases out of it. But there's Law by Mike on YouTube. He's a very powerful influencer. And there's a lot of, I would say, like legal influencers out there that have really crafted like a practice, like by doing it very intentionally. And it's really powerful.
Yeah. Because a brand with one blast can bring you so much, right? And if you don't have a brand, then you're gonna invest a lot on it. Yeah, and a brand is also something that we have to take care of. So
it takes time to build that brand.
It takes time. It takes time. I like that. There is not an overnight. Could be at times, but it's not sustainable. So we want to make something predictable and sustainable, scalable. We got to build a strong brand. We got to build a strong brand. Thank you, Zach, for your time.
Thank you, Karen.
It's amazing having you today. I hope that our audience learned a lot from this, and that we, all of us, start to be intentional, committed. And, I always say, right, if you don't plan, you plan to fail. We have heard this from so many successful stories, but 2026 is the year of intentionality. So we have to do it.
For sure. Well, Karen, definitely thank you for having me on.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Throne of Wealth. Be sure to subscribe, share, and leave a review to help others find the show. A special thanks to our sponsor, King of Kings Accounting Firm, dedicated to helping you build and protect wealth for generations. Until next time, take the reins of your financial future and lead with confidence.